Welcome to Beers with Contractors. We're cracking a cold one and taking a deep dive into the foundations of your business, pun intended, to unearth the strategies, techniques, and insider knowledge that can take your contracting business to the next level. So, grab your favorite beer, pull up a seat, and let's have a chat about the nuts and bolts of the construction industry.
All right, tradies. It is another Thursday on the podcast.
That means crack it.
I'll be like Jack Black in that movie, was it Saving Silverman, where he's like, he goes over, and it's like, you don't have to make the noise. It does the for you.
Well, welcome back to another week, another podcast, and I know Will and I have had a number of conversations with businesses in the last couple of weeks, and there's been one kind of recurring topic that comes up a lot, and that is vision casting. And so I thought it'd be a fun topic. Maybe we just start out this week and talk a little bit about vision. And I want to hone in, maybe cue this up with a book that we both read and like a lot by Sinek called Start With Why. And so I'm just going to maybe set a little bit of background and then hear Will's thoughts on this. But in a nutshell, the book basically starts out by talking about there's two ways to influence human behavior. Either you can manipulate it or you can inspire it. And probably each of us have been in companies where you've been manipulated to do well, and it's a very duty-based company. You got to do this, do this, do this. And then there's desire-based companies where it's inspired. And so Sinek gets to the heart of this by saying, hey, you have to build the why, right? You have to not just talk about what you do, but why you do it. And ultimately, we're going to be drawn to leaders of organizations that inspire us towards that why. They make us feel special in that, like we feel like we're actually accomplishing something. We're rowing in kind of a noble purpose. And then ultimately what that leads to is those happy employees that are inspired and desire to be there are going to go on and make happy customers for you. So it's about creating loyalty inside the company and then setting that why outside. So I know, Will, your title at Vesta Foundation Solutions has been visionary. So talk to us a little bit about what being a visionary for a company, what does that title even mean, and what is vision casting to you?
Well, first off, thank you for finally letting me speak. That was the longest I think you've ever made me sit on the sidelines. It's like, come on, do I get to talk now? By the way, you actually quoted a few different books there. You quoted, Start With Why. I don't know if it's Simon Sinek or Simon Sinek. I hear people pronounce it all sorts of ways. But also, Lisa Earl McLeod wrote a great book called Selling with Noble Purpose, which talks about defining purpose in your sales process, which is a great book. But let me get back to this. So, I'm the big idea guy, and that's not always a great thing, but it is a good way to get the flywheel moving in an organization, because honestly, you've heard me say it, I don't wake up every day wanting to do foundation repair, right? So there has to be a purpose, and it doesn't just relate to the employees, it's outward facing to the customers as well. And it gets somebody the reason to get up in the morning. And by the way, if you're not a reader, that TED Talk that Simon did years ago that outlines will Start With Why is awesome. Beep, beep. We got sound bites today. This is awesome. We need a sound bite audio clip, but it is one of those things. It's the first area I try to start with in a business, because if there's no vision, there's really no direction. And then it's much harder to get systems, processes to stick when you don't have that call it moral compass of the company pointing people in a certain area. So full disclosure, we do foundation repair, concrete repair, crawl space repair. It's not sexy. It's just not a sexy business. But you've heard me talk about this, and the purpose is like we literally save communities with our work. And we've talked about this. There's this concept of what's called broken window theory. I can't remember. You probably remember. It's a professor in 1982, I think it was University of Ohio, wrote this thesis on broken window theory. It essentially said if you go into a neighborhood, there's a broken window, naturally your psychology is going to make you lean more towards the end of saying, hey, this is not a well-maintained neighborhood. So that slowly allows people to take less care of their properties. They don't want to mow the lawn. It's easier to litter. And then that eventually gets into things like, hey, this would be a great place to sell my drugs. Maybe I can take that Amazon package off the front. porch. And then it gets some more violent crimes, but that all is stemmed from just not maintaining our properties. So when we can literally pick up a house and put it back together, and take a driveway and repair it and really hold together the infrastructure of a property, that's why we exist, because it doesn't only help that customer, but it helps the neighborhood, it helps the school system, it helps the tax burden on the citizens there. So, that's what our vision is as a company, and our why is not just to fix homes, but it's like literally to save communities. And it's scientifically proven, tons of case studies. I would suggest anybody look up broken window theory and crime rate in New York in the 1990s. It's insane how they dropped the crime rate so quickly just for prettying up their infrastructure. It's nuts. So did that answer your question? Yeah, I put you on the sidelines that time.
I just think too of like any organization I've ever been part of that like talked about what we do all the time, it's just boring. It's just a drag. Like you don't and if you're not inspired to do something, like you're never gonna go above or beyond. Like no one wants to like go give it all to an organization or a company when basically you're just like pushing papers, and it's just it's just another day in the life, right? And I have some friends in different industries that kind of talk about their day-to-day jobs, and it's like that's what it feels like. And I bet our listener has probably experienced that in their life too. And ultimately it comes to hiring as well, because like if you can sell the why to someone in hiring, shoot, you're going to get the right people, and like you're going to hire based off people that are motivated employees, and you just got to inspire them a little bit with your why, and then they're going to go, right? Instead of hire them and just tell them these are all the things that you need to, the check boxes you got to accomplish. So it's just a totally different framework to do business. And if you could go to your employees right now and whether they're people you manage or colleagues, and just ask like, why are we even in this business? And they can't answer it clearly, the vision caster, whether that's the CEO or the manager or whatever, has done a bad job. And it needs to be clear, and it's got to be reinforced over and over again with new language.
Yeah. Well, in the book, Selling a Noble Purpose, I think Lisa or McLeod, they owned a sign company. And pardon if I got this wrong, if our listener read this book, they ultimately went out of business, but they recalled a situation where they put up this sign for this business. And this was like a dream come true for these people to open their business, right? So what happened was it was like, wow, we didn't realize like just having a sign company had such an impact on people. So it's interesting. Number one, you got to be sincere in what your purpose is, because then it just comes off hokey and it's not authentic. But like you have to believe it. Like what I was talking about, like our foundation repair company, I believe it. Like, and my employees see that, and it's like, oh yeah, like I totally will answer the phones, drive the trucks, clean the warehouse, for knowing that what I'm doing is going to have a lasting purpose, right? And I think that's, as human beings, we all want that. So, by the way, quick homework assignment for anybody is just go watch the 18-minute TED Talk. Great video. I need that reminder because I read that book like 10 years ago and I forgot, like, yeah, that's a good one. So
yeah, maybe just close it out with another example that Simon Sinek gives in the book, and that's Apple. We all know Apple and wildly successful, right? Just billions in the bank. And you could talk about what they do, right? They just came out with this new Vision Pro. They've got obviously the iPhone, Mac, all kinds of different products. That's what they do. But what propelled them to success is the why. And they wanted to basically redefine what it was to be a technology company. And they had this famous Super Bowl commercial, if you've ever seen it, where it's 1989-esque, if you've read that book, and they're just like challenging the status quo. And they've hired people that just want to challenge the status quo, and they see that as like Microsoft and all these other big companies. And then what do? Like their branding is a totally different look than every other company. The way they talk about their products, completely different. Even just, a touch screen, like that's a different way to have a phone. Like, and so it challenges the status quo, and it becomes this culture that everyone wants to affiliate with. So if you need a visual, like Apple is a great one. Obviously it's really big, but you could do that in small strokes with any business.
Yeah. Well, this will dovetail really well with our guests, because I don't know if you knew the background when Steve Jobs came back. Love this story. Like when he came back as CEO, he immediately like shredded half of the product lines at Apple. And he's like, no, we're only going to do 4 things, which actually is what drives me when we help companies create their long-term vision, is like, you can only focus on 4 things. What's it going to be? And it focuses back on the why we're doing what we do. But also what it does is it simplifies and it keeps you from getting this paralysis of over diversification. And it's a really cool story. There was actually a product called the Newton, like Isaac Newton, right? That had like a stylus, and Steve Jobs hated this thing. First product to get killed immediately. And it's just funny. They were like, no, we're going to refine it. And that's why it's going to dovetail well. I think you're going to like this, Dylan, with our guests. So, hey, we are reaching a milestone. By the way, we're coming up on St. Patty's Day. Yeah, so we're pre-gaming for St. Patty's Day. By the way, I'm repping my friends at OSU that help us with the construction camp.
And repping Site One Landscape Supply. We've been to a number of Site One universities, meaning lawn care and landscaping companies out there through Unison Works. So,
yeah, a lot of companies on our pay for performance application, which is just really cool to see. And then, just massive company, but great people. So, so today we're reaching a milestone. We have 4 people in the room today that we're going to break the internet today. Drake is going to be pulling his hair out here in a little bit. So, first duo guest lineup, Dylan. So, these are brothers we got today. And I think they're in separate spaces. We'll break them up if they get to fighting and arguing too much. But, they own and operate their family business out of Richmond, Virginia. Their business, Ogburn Construction, they go all the way back to 1989. And this is what I really love about their story. They were general contractors, which we know that is you can do anything and everything, right? And you do new home builds, additions, all this stuff. But then a few years ago, as these 2 brothers started to take over the company, they really focused on specializing. And starting back in 2014 with 5 employees, now they have up to 16 employees as of March of 2023. So this is fun. And exceeding $3 million in revenue. So that's like amazing to hear, just his success of focus. And then all of a sudden you grow, right? Less is more. So I want to welcome Taylor and Stephen Ogburn, the Ogburn brothers. Welcome, guys, on the East Coast too. So cheers.
Cheers. Thank you guys for having us on.
Oh, Taylor's empty-handed. Taylor, did you show up empty-handed?
So we talked about it. We didn't want to have Stephen running across, as you guys were maybe introducing us, but I'm a guest at his house, and so I didn't grab myself a beer. Here I am.
So hold on. I want to be very clear. I work with my brother, but I do not work with my brother. We do not get along. We butt heads like crazy. How is work between Stephen and Taylor Ogburn? Before we get into the nooks and crannies of the business, let's hear how this goes.
Yeah, I think it goes really, really well. Of course, I'm Taylor's direct manager, so that's everything.
I mean, I could make a joke and say that he's not, but he really is. We actually really enjoy working together, and I would say any time that he and I are able to get alone in a room, that's where most of the stuff happens for our company, which is really fun to say. I feel like it's a unicorn, to be in a company with your family and actually not argue all the time. Like everyone we've ever talked to has said the opposite.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. So, so Stephen, you're man in the helm now, but take us through the story of Ogburn Construction, because it started with your parents, right? And then you've been with them for a while now, but you're still a young fella. Take us through the story.
Sure. My dad started out in construction at 14, and then in 89, he just decided, I'm not working for the company that I want to be working for in terms of how they do things. So I said, well, I'll start my own. And so he and my mom, he would do all the work. My mom would do the books. And they did that successfully for about 30 years as a very small mom and pop business. Never advertised, just good word of mouth. And really in 2008, when the financial crisis hit, he decided, should we compete with every contractor in the Richmond area for the same work? And we're also in people's homes. They're very stressed out. Do we really want to be doing kitchens and additions at this time? And he and my uncle ended up deciding, why don't we do accessory structures? We know how to build things. Let's just do from the ground up, garages, anything from $20,000 to actually we did some $400,000 garages. And that was cool. We were doing almost one a week, even with some of those bigger builds. And it was a cool business. I mean, lean, 5 employees, but it was killing us. I mean, we did not have any joy at the end of the day. We were managing so many subcontractors, trying to keep permits moving. It was just stressful. And I told my dad at one point, I don't really want this business eventually. I'd be happy being on my way out. And that was sobering for him. So we were low key thinking, all right, what else could we do that would, support the team that we have, but give us peace of mind at the end of the day and better relationships and all that. And actually we got called by SupportWorks, who brought us into concrete repair, and it was a cold call. And I took it and basically said, nah, no thanks, I'm busy. And then 3-4 days later, we called them back and said, actually, this really seems like something that we should consider. And from there, we got into concrete repair, and here we are.
Yeah, and what year was that, Stephen?
We signed with them, I think, December of 18.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's 5 years in now. That's cool.
So in terms of, it lacked joy. I like the way you said that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I love that he was like, I don't want this business.
I'm young and it's going to pass to me eventually, but I don't really want it. So then you got a cold call from SupportWorks. And for our listener out there, if they don't know who SupportWorks is, kind of a network dealer for concrete and foundation repair based in Nebraska. And so they just found you, and they thought maybe you guys would be interested in concrete repair, and you got back with them. And was the transition immediate, in a couple months? And then did you guys do some general construction, or talk to us about that transition?
Sure. So at first we had planned to keep doing both. But about 6 months in, we said, nope, this is the direction we really need to be moving. And bringing it back to start with why, we were really good at the what in the garage business. We didn't have a whole lot of purpose. So when we started working with a network of people who thought like us, but put emphasis in different places, redefining, trying to really connect with people, not that we didn't care before, but we were just beat down by the grind. So as we ramped up in the concrete repair, by the end of that first year in 2019, we were completely out of doing garages and fully in on concrete repair as our sole business.
Yeah, that's awesome, because also you not only found better profit margins and more scalability, you found a little bit more happiness, it sounds like, Stephen. So hold on, I got to double check. So what's the birth order here? Stephen, you oldest, Taylor, you youngest. Are there any other siblings? Okay. So no third one coming up being like, hey, can I be a part of this after you did all the work? So Stephen, you're really doing the day-to-day operations, right? You're the captain of the ship. Taylor, so what is your role in the company now as you're taking over the family business?
Yeah, my biggest strength is systems and processes and efficiency. So my story, I was the black sheep of the family, although I think both of us were at some point in our lives. But during all of this garage business, I went to Los Angeles to pursue music, met my beautiful wife out there. We decided LA wasn't the place to live. We moved back here in 2015, late 2015, early 2016. And the reason that I moved back was I was working for a coffee shop out there, and I had to basically rebuild their entire computer structure. They had everything on individual computers, and this is right when Dropbox is really taken off, and there's no need to have anything on just one computer, have it on cloud, have it spread out. So I was doing a ton of work to them, but I was only making like $18 an hour in Los Angeles, which is nothing. That's practically, even back then, it was a minimum wage. And so my dad was like, look, you're doing all this work for that company. They clearly don't care about you. I need this for our company. Come in and do that. And back when I did move, there was one sales guy. It wasn't Steven. Steven was doing more like site work and foundations and stuff. And there was one sales guy, and he had all of the sales records, every estimate, pretty much the entire company on one computer. So if that computer had anything spilled on it, if he had dropped it, if he decided to leave the company, like any amount of any kind of bad thing to happen would have completely killed the company. And so, my dad was like, I need that. I need you. Get back here. I'll pay you the same amount, which moving from Los Angeles to Richmond was a massive raise. And then pretty much ever since then, I've just been the IT guy. I've been organizing systems left and right. I moved from that into sales management, really gave the sales team a lot of structure. And now I'm full-blown IT engineer and developing software for our company too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Dylan, I didn't tell you, but Taylor we're not going to give Steven any credit here. Taylor's created a sales software for concrete removal and replacement and pricing. Am I slaughtering that, Taylor?
No, you nailed it.
Yeah, and it's because it's obviously a very fractured, disorganized industry, but it's streamlining the estimating process. Like, when did you just wake up, Taylor, and be like, hey, I'm going to create this, right? The slow day at Ogburn, it's like, yeah, I'm going to design a software today, right?
So the funny thing about that is we were doing all of the garage stuff. We were doing all of that on spreadsheets, and we had it down to a science where within about 30 minutes of the salesperson talking to the homeowner, they could have that garage, no matter how complicated, priced down to the penny. And so that was originally my dad's idea. And I guess, Steven, I don't know, I'm hazy on the history of that.
Yeah, he was over-caffeinated from the coffee shop and still paying back his credit card debt for moving to Los Angeles. He's fuzzy on his memory, Steven. Help him out.
Yeah, we've done a lot of different things through sheets, spreadsheets, Google Sheets, all that kind of stuff. And we really, they're not meant for what we keep trying to use them for. So Taylor coming in and developing a question-based estimating tool was really imperative. I mean, we kept breaking the sheets all the time, and it's hard to get information to the right people efficiently. And so, yeah, my dad needed Taylor to build that, and we're about to launch.
Yeah, it's exciting. And Steven, just to clarify, you're leading the company and all that. Do you hate having to sit down and iron out these systems and processes, and it's just like, yeah, let Taylor do it. I'm going to go lead the troops type thing. Is that kind of the dynamic or chemistry there?
I don't hate it. It's just that what would take me a week will take Taylor 2 hours. And so there's just no point in me even endeavoring and trying to build something. He'll just build it way cooler, way faster.
Yeah. Well, see, this is what I think is just so cool about this concept. Because, obviously we have our own software company adjacent to our construction company. But the fact is there's so many readily available products out there that can help you truly create something customizable that's uniquely your own. And so Taylor, take me through that journey where it's like, hey, I've identified a problem. Did you get drunk one night and say, hey, I'm going to start writing a software for this? I mean, what happened there?
Yeah, well, really, what Steven was saying, us using Sheets was really the biggest issue. So we created a Google Sheet that all of our salespeople could access. And in order for them to use it, they would have to create a copy of that sheet first, then fill out whatever information they would need to. And then when they're done, it creates a formatted proposal. They then take that proposal, turn it into a PDF, store the estimator somewhere in Google Drive, have the PDF attached to the proposal, and then all of that information would have to be translated to, someone in the office who would then tell my dad all the details of the concrete. You can see where this is going. There's too many moving pieces. There's too many problems, right? And a Google Sheet, while it's powerful, is really not designed to do something like that. You can, and it's impressive that it will handle it, but you need a database. You need, a app that can't be manipulated. If anyone knows how to use Google Sheets, they could know how to mess with the pricing in the back end pretty easily. And so it just really got to this point where this is everything that we're trying to do is really meant to be done on an app. It's not meant to be done in a Google Sheet. We need something that has a lot more structure to it. And that was about 4 months ago, that I've been going to college for computer science at the same time, and sitting there in class learning all this coding and stuff. And then I'm just sitting there going, why the hell haven't we built an app yet? Like we're all pulling our hair out trying to make this happen, and we could easily just develop something that's going to do exactly what we want it to do and not have any of this extra crap, any of the fluff, any of the mistakes that are constantly being made by the sales team. Not to call them out. I mean, they're doing a great job, but
Yeah, by the way, I haven't mentioned this, and we'll try to put this in the notes. What is the platform called, Taylor?
yeah, we are now calling it Ogburn Estimate. Originally, it was just called Concrete Estimator, but it may eventually branch out into more now that we have a pretty good grasp on pricing out the concrete. We're thinking maybe we'll dive into some other stuff with it.
Yeah, well, that's the journey. Is like, oh, we created this, and it's like, oh, now we're going to create 10 other things from it based on user feedback. Hey, I want to shift gears real quick because, Stephen, this is something interesting. There's been a transition of, call it authority at Ogburn, obviously with your parents, and then you taking over the operations. Take me through that journey. How did that go? Because, Stephen, sorry if this sounds bad. You strike me as a pretty young, vibrant guy. I mean, I look at you. How old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, man, I nailed that, didn't I? Samsonite, I was way off. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, take 30 as a badge of honor. You look good. So take me through that transition. What was that like, taking it over from the parents and the existing team, and then it's like, hey, we're going in this direction now. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, honestly, it was a pretty simple process for our family. I think we have always been a big conversation family ever since we were pretty young. When I was 16, it was, I could say this, who cares? Sitting on the back patio, smoking a cigar, having a scotch, and debating philosophy, religion, politics. That was what we did for a good time. So, but really, I think like it just happened. My dad is a really open person to conversation and feedback, and it just ended up working out that everything that we wanted to do, I kept taking on more responsibility for the management side of things, and he kept saying, yeah, if that's what you want to do, like, you're doing a great job, just keep doing it. And now he sits in the visionary spot, and I'm more the integrator, and that works well for us. It's the day-to-day accountability for the team that I provide, and then he and I have a lot of one-on-one conversations about the direction of the company and what we want to do. And he's still very active and involved. At 63, he's not going anywhere fast, and we like that. There's no reason for him to exit the company quickly. He's providing a lot to our customers. He gets out there on some of the concrete pouring jobs that we do. And he has so much experience. Starting at 14, that's 50 years almost of experience that he brings, and then just a warmth when he's talking to people where they immediately, if they had a concern, feel at ease. So it just, in our case, we get heated and debate and talk about things loudly sometimes, but we're able to move on and keep going.
Yeah, I think it's so important you got to have some healthy disagreement in a family, and a cigar on the back patio doesn't.
Yeah, that actually helps it. Most families, you throw scotch and cigars in. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, we still do that from time to time. We'll have a little powwow and talk about some deep stuff. It's great.
Just one point of clarification in case our listener is curious. We've used the word visionary a couple times, and I think that's self-explanatory. Stephen, you just mentioned my dad is the visionary, and you sit in the integrator role. Can you just describe real quick what that means to be an integrator?
Yeah, so visionary is casting vision, right? They're talking about the direction overall of the company and keeping their eyes open for new opportunities and what might happen. And the integrator takes that and says, all right, how are we actually going to do all this stuff on a day-to-day basis? And, helps lead and manage to keep the team members accountable to seeing that fulfilled. And, to be honest, eventually I'd love to sit in that visionary role. I think I'm actually a little bit outside my comfort zone in being an integrator, but it's the appropriate order of things. And I've found my cadence in that, and I've learned to enjoy it.
Nice. Just as a comparison, Will is the visionary at his foundation repair company, and his wife sits as the integrator. And my favorite way of it being described is basically that as a visionary, he's going to come up with about 10 ideas in a day, and the integrator just needs to throw away the 9 dumpster fire ideas and roll with the one good one, right? So it's a lot of filter.
Yeah, I have a 1 in 20 success rate with ideas. Like mine's pretty bad. But hey, you take enough shots, you're gonna sink some points in the hoops, right? So it's like, hey, come on. So hey, shifting to Taylor. So tell me about a time where Steven really screwed it up bad at work. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to do that. Yeah. So Taylor, have you had to step in as family referee in the visionary integrator? I guess just the operational referee for the construction company on occasion?
I don't know. Like, the three of us have always worked so well together. Like, we do have our debates and stuff, but like when it comes down to decision making, I think we all share a very equal respect for each other, and no one's idea is off the table by any means, but we're all going to work together to figure out what's going to make the most sense. And oftentimes the three of us are coming up with good enough ideas that it's never a, no, we're not going to do that. It's more of a, not yet. And that way everything's on the table. And I think that's probably what's allowed me to develop software for our company. That's where we've, been able to switch full business over. I think we all listen to each other quite well. And so even though I'm not necessarily in the visionary integrator relationship, and I'm actually well beneath that, I'm under Steven, my voice is still treated as an equal with them. Which I think is great. I mean, from my perspective, of course, that's fantastic, but I like to think that they actually like my ideas too. They like me being at the table for those kinds of conversations as well. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we're the type of family that really dukes it out to the point that someone has to step.
Well, it's great, honestly, because we know a lot of construction companies through, our software company that they have a lot of struggle with succession and transfer of power and authority, and there's just a lot of egos brought in and things like that. We had Jamie Robertson on several episodes ago. They took over a great electrical company and they just did it right. And it's good to hear that, no, this is how it should be done, and this is how it should be operated. There should be a lot of diplomacy. There should be a lot of, call it horizontal hierarchy when it comes to the authority of a family. And a lot of it can be delegated out or diplomatically resolved. So this is actually great, because most people, they don't see it that way. So I do have another question, because Taylor, you said you managed the sales team. Steven, I'm guessing you managed the sales team, right? Just like table stakes, you have to go through that. Now, who's managing the sales team now?
We did bring in a sales manager, and that was actually a great conversation when we had to do that. So I was doing it and not doing it well, right? Taylor had been working for Apple, and he had some really great ideas he was bringing from Apple to our business.
This is why I want to hear about this, because I just talked to a company the other day in Florida, bringing on their very first salesperson. It's like a big milestone for their company. And I'm like, just wait, it's going to come in. So the fact is like, Taylor, you came from a totally different industry into managing a sales team and did it really well. Like, I want to hear how this went. Like, you came in, I'm sure you automatically had a plan. Everything was laid out perfectly, right? Like, take me through that journey, Taylor, because this is pretty cool.
So when I first came in, I did come from Apple. I was working as a genius at Apple, and but the main way that you would describe that role truly is that I was the guy who would repair people's relationship with their devices. And I think that's, like, hold on to that, because that's something that we really believe in Ogburn Construction. We're not repairing people's concrete. We're repairing people's relationship with their home.
That's powerful.
That's the mentality that I came from at Apple. Was very much so, do anything that I can to help the people enrich people's lives was a really big thing at Apple. And, they certainly taught me a ton of really important skills, a lot of customer de-escalation, how to shift conversation from, hey, your device is destroyed, to what do you think about maybe purchasing a new phone, which is a huge jump. For a lot of people, it's like, hey, you could spend $500 repairing this phone, or you could spend thousands of dollars on a new phone. What do you say? So those kinds of skills actually translated really well into the sales position. So when I first came in, I was acting as a salesperson. Stephen was the sales manager at the time. And I was doing really well because I was just connecting with people. It wasn't about sales tactics or the sales process. It was much more just, hey, how can I repair your relationship with your home here? Like, you're dealing with this problem. I don't really care what products I have or solutions I have. My goal is to help you. And that mentality really, really helped me do really well in sales, enough that I think Stephen was just like, hey, this guy's doing really well. He should teach other people how to do it. And we moved me into the sales management position. And then from there, I've got that systematic brain. I've tried my best to systematize everything that I was doing, create checklists, create processes, take SupportWorks and what training they gave us and take their sales process and cram it into what Ogburn's trying to do and get my team to follow those steps. And my mentality was always, if you follow the steps, then you'll be able to do everything right. It's not really true. I lost that connection to the person. I think as being a sales manager, I stopped focusing on what was actually making me connect with people and really get the sale, not because I was trying to sell a product, but that connection with people. And so I got really worn out doing that, but I really loved the processes and the systems. And Stephen, I think, was able to see which direction I was heading, see that I was taking courses in college for computer science, and just gave me the opportunity to switch gears entirely, go full IT. And I absolutely love it. It's fantastic, but we definitely needed to hire someone who had that same level of connection with people, and was doing it well enough that they didn't lose that.
Yeah. Well, I know somebody out there is probably going through that transition. And thank you for sharing that, Taylor. Just because, first off, I'm the stereotype, like, dude, I love to sell. That was like where I was just, I was just good at it. And then it's like, hey, now you got to lead other people to sell. And I'm not good at that. Anyway, that'll be another episode.
He was unhappy in doing that work. He was truly unhappy. He was doing a great job of trying to teach, but when you're not really in it, when your heart's not in it, you can't but for so long do the job.
I got to say one thing, just an observation, because for the listener out there, I this is the first time getting to talk to Taylor and Stephen for me, and it's awesome to hear you guys talk about pivoting when you're unhappy, because I think there's a lot of business owners, managers, employees that just don't pivot when they're unhappy. They think they have to white knuckle it and just keep going forward. It's like, no, Taylor, this position, you may need to white knuckle it for a couple months as we try to backfill it or transition it to someone else, but like, we're going to get you out of it, right? And I think there's a lot of companies out there that just keep going and they think this is just what you have to do. And it's like, no, there are other options. So it's inspiring to hear.
Well, to that, I think a lot of people have heard the term like right people, right seats. And I know that comes from EOS, but like, I think for that is always meant to me, not just are they capable of doing the job and are they doing the job in the right position? It's really, are they feeling that here? Are they feeling that with joy, as Stephen said earlier? Are they truly happy doing what they're doing? If they're not, it's not the right seat.
Yeah.
They might be the right person. They might have everything that they need to work for our company. It might be the right culture, but they're just not doing the right job.
Yeah. So you guys have now established this sales manager role. So what was that process like? Because, obviously had big shoes to fill after Stephen and Taylor, both with the Ogburn family title and their last name. So how was that process? How's that going? That onboarding, bringing into an existing team? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was this year, or last year rather, is a better way to say that. We brought on 3 managers. Before, it was me, my dad, and Taylor sitting at a leadership table having conversations. And in the last 8 months, we've added 3 people to our leadership team and in management. And so that's been a huge shift. I think it's really made us aware a little bit of the inevitable privilege. Like Taylor moved laterally in our company into another leadership team position in IT. There's some privilege in that I think we should acknowledge. Like, it's not easy for everybody to find joy in their job. They feel stuck a lot of times. So it's not as simple as just quitting and finding something else. So I just want to acknowledge that a little bit, that like it is hard. It's possible for anybody, but it's difficult. But yeah, bringing in a sales manager, I think we weren't super aware of how much we knew intrinsically about the business because we had all been in it for so long. And that's been the hardest part. We intentionally hired somebody who didn't have the same disposition and personality and everything as the 3 of us, because we knew that would be a mistake. We would end up with monotone culture and ways of thinking and all that. But the sheer volume of information and training and everything that has had to go into all 3 of these new managers has been challenging and rewarding at the same time. More chances to build systems.
Yeah. So which 3 positions were filled?
The first was we brought in an HR and accounting person.
That's huge. Thank you for saying that. Like, well, full disclosure, Dillon was my first HR hire. And I don't know, how many employees did we have? Yeah, and I should have done it at like 20. And the fact that you're doing it at like 16 is, well, probably before even 16. Such a key position, and contractors forget how important the HR accounting recruiting role is. It's like, it is a game changer. Sorry, Stephen, I interrupted.
No, I think for us, it was a night and day difference. I mean, we hired her, and then literally the next week, everything was better.
Oh, I'm telling you, if anybody takes anything away from this, I think we, as contractors, we put HR in a box. Like, somebody telling us that we can't say this or do that. So I know, don't make fun of me, Dillon. I know you're upset, but anyway.
Well, I think the best part is that now I get to send Steven to HR. Like, who doesn't want that?
Which don't they probably share the office, right?
Yeah, she's 5 feet away from me.
It's like the office where, Dwight's got the complaint box to corporate, and it's just a box that they just throw stuff in the corner, right? So I'm sorry, I derailed us so bad there. Thank you for saying that. It's like, gosh, there's so much importance there. So HR, sales, and who else, Stephen?
And a production manager has now joined our team. He started about a month ago now.
Boy, that's a big operational shift. That's pretty cool. We always ask this, guys, and it's funny. I read through some of our preliminary stuff. By the way, I did not mention to our listener that you guys have an awesome, just kick-ass reputation online, customer service, like 99%. Sorry I didn't mention that in the bio. I think the 1% was, they just ended up in a spam folder somewhere. But we always ask this. I'm interested to hear some of this. So one big screw up that you made in your working life that hopefully somebody else can benefit from. Hopefully it's good enough you can brag about, but hopefully help somebody out there listening to this be like, oh, hope I don't do that again. So, all right, we'll flip a coin, or we going to have, you want to pick one, Dillon? Who's going first?
Taylor's is more fun. We thought about it a little bit, but we started out, when we started to do the concrete repair, we were doubling in size every year. So, just hitting the ground running. We were having a great time. It was super fun. And we got up to 26 employees, right? We're 16 now. We were at 26 before. And we did not know how to hire people and lead and manage them. We went from a company of 5 where everybody knew what hat to wear, and if something wasn't going well, we either addressed it or ignored it. Those were the options. And when you get to a size of 26 and you don't have those skills, people start running your business for you. And we thought that our well-intentioned culture and trying to really help people, but our help was without guardrails. There were no boundaries. We weren't great at setting expectations and then making sure that people were following up. So our great culture actually turned really toxic in a matter of 6 to 8 months, and we almost lost our business. I mean, we went down to close to nothing in the bank account. And I looked at my dad and I was like, I'm sorry. I think I drove this thing into the ground. I don't know what you're going to do for retirement. I'm getting another job. See you later. No. But the rebuild, we learned so much in that rebuild. And we got down to 12 employees. And really, like, we learned so many lessons about right people, right seats, right? I mean, we had 4 production crews. And last year we did the same install with 2.5 crews that we were doing with 4.5 crews at the height. And a better sales team who's more committed and weren't looking for us to make everything happen for them. And so it was a combination of getting better at hiring, better interview process, but also looking in the mirror and saying like, wow, we are really missing the mark on some core tools that we need to develop as a leadership team. So yeah, I almost killed our family business after 34 years.
I almost killed my family business. Wow. Hey, by the way, thank you for saying that, Stephen, because I think we forget, like, it's like, no, we got to grow. But then it's like, hey, it is okay to drop back and punt as business owners. And we talked about Start With Why, that book, but another great book is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And it's like, hey, if we still want to be in business 40 years from now, like, yeah, we can take we can go down in size a year or two. Like, let's build it right. So I'm super just humbled to hear you say that. That's pretty cool.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Stephen. And Taylor, yours is apparently fun. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I could not come up with one that dealt with family business and whatnot. A long time ago, I was a videographer, and I was not good. I thought I was good. I was not good at it at all. And I got this offer to do a wedding and, film the wedding, edit the video for them, submit it to them later. And I agreed without looking into any part of it at all. And so I showed up at the venue, and it was this Catholic church. The wedding took 3 hours. I brought a pretty heavy camera and a tripod that was not big enough for that camera. And so over the course of this 3 hours, you could see the footage, me nodding off as the camera slowly dips and then comes back up, and then slowly, and then comes back up. And then, luckily the after party was okay. It wasn't great. It was okay. And so, I left that whole thing just like, God, I am not looking forward to editing this thing. I don't even know. The whole thing wasn't even in English either. And so it was some other language. So there's nothing for me to grab onto. When I go to edit this thing, I have absolutely no idea what I can cut out and what I can't. And so I'm dreading this. And I put off editing this thing for months. And eventually I came back to my camera and said, okay, like, enough pushing this thing down the road. I need to sit down and put something together. Like, maybe I'll throw it into Google Translate. I don't know. I'll figure something out. And I went to plug in the camera. This is, a lot older. I'm hardlining my camera into my computer to upload all the files. And it's not working. The whole hard drive just completely failed. All of the video files are completely corrupted. And I can't edit anything at all. So now I have to go back to this couple who doesn't really know me. At this point, they're pretty sure I'm just scamming them. And then I have to tell them, I've lost everything. I lost all your footage. Sorry. It was horribly embarrassing. And yeah, never going to do that again. I hate weddings.
All right, you know what's coming, Dylan. So I read this, Taylor, before in our pre-show prep. And so full disclosure, Dylan is Catholic, and I attended his wedding. And the second I heard Catholic wedding 3 hours, I'm like, oh yeah, totally get it. So Sydney and I had this joke, like, that people left with more kids than what they arrived with in that wedding. Like, I think literally there were 6 kids born in that wedding because it was so long, and I didn't understand. Like, people were standing up. I didn't know I was supposed to stand up. Honestly, it was a great time. It was a great time, but the cheat code, Taylor, is you could have just went back the next week and filmed another wedding, and nobody would have known the difference, probably.
Honestly, that's a much better idea than what I actually did, you know?
Visionary. There's my 1 in 20 ideas that came out.
I'm just imagining if you had gotten that, like if you hadn't lost the data, like editing it in another language would have just been like, I mean, what parts do you cut out?
I have no idea. Maybe some parts of it were in Latin. I'd have no clue.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, listen, guys, thank you so much for being here. Love having you guys. And Dylan, thanks for picking up the observation. I think if, like, number one, if I take anything away from this is like, yeah, don't be unhappy and miserable. And I'm glad you made that observation. I think we do that in construction, just in home services in general. It's just like grind it out, be miserable. By the way, pass that miserable nature onto your kids at dinner and all that stuff. And that's a cool theme that I didn't expect to pick up out of this. So I appreciate that. Hey, if our listener wants to get a hold of you, how do they reach you guys?
Yeah. You can email me. Do I just go ahead and say the email?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't give your phone number. We'll put an email down in the show notes. We'll put your direct cell phone in the show notes, Steven, so people can spam call you.
Gotcha. Yeah, but we're on LinkedIn. Happy to get a message that way and communicate. We like helping people. So if you have a question, fire it at us.
Yeah, and it's Ogburn construction, right? Ogburn? Cool. That's awesome. And Taylor, same for you, right?
We have a joke in my company. I'd prefer that they submit a tech support ticket. Otherwise, no, you can email me as well, t.ogburn@ogburnco.com. That works fine. And happy to take any questions or help people out if they need anything.
Yeah, and your construction, or the Ogburn concrete estimating software or application that you're developing, that's really internal right now, but you plan on trying to expand that out. It's still same source for that. Reach out to you.
Definitely got a ways to go, but I think that is our end goal, is to make that available for people in general. I think one of the best features that I'm trying to implement is when you enter in the customer's address, it's automatically going to pull up a nearest by concrete company, in your preferred places to pick up materials. And so it's going to price it based off of your interactions with your favorite companies.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm looking forward to the updates on there. I've seen it. It's pretty cool software, Dylan. And then we'll have another episode about when Will tried to do concrete removal and replacement and how awful it was and how much money I lost in it. But anyway, gentlemen, cheers to you. Thanks for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Thanks for spanning 2 time zones with us today. And otherwise, folks, tradies, we will see you guys next week on Beers with Contractors. Thanks.
Welcome to Beers with Contractors. Grab your favorite beer, pull up a seat, and let's have a chat about the nuts and bolts of the construction industry. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.